Welcome back to the Sense of Security podcast. I'm Mary McNamara, producer at Interactive Brokers. Today, I'm your host for our podcast. So welcome to the program. Our guest is the one and only Cassidy Clement, the senior manager of SEO and content, the host of over 100 Sense of Security podcast episodes. Cassidy is off to a new adventure this week, so we thought it would be good to interview her about the podcast. Cassidy, tell us, what was the genesis of Sense of Security? How did it get started?
We at IBKR campus offer several different items when it comes to free educational information, but a lot of it was framed around the idea that you may be entering the area with a little bit more information about being in the financial space. And there wasn't too much for the beginner investor, or maybe our podcast information involved those who were coming in who already took economics or maybe had a minor or major in the field. So they knew all the jargon and all the things associated. So I think at this stage of the game, maybe it was 3 years ago at this point, Mary, you and I sat down and said, hey, there's a bit of a market gap here. And also with the work that I do in SEO, I can see what people are searching for, what the analytics show engagement wise. And there were a lot of people who, young and old, may have just been entering different topics of financial information that they weren't fully fledged experts on, or maybe they weren't super familiar with. So we looked to create something that formed a foundational aspect that you can listen to in a commute or on the ride to a dinner party or something of that nature. So you know the basics and the foundation. So you know if you want to learn more about a specific facet or maybe a company within those sectors or those ideas, you have enough information now to deepen that learning or deepen your search to find more.
Absolutely. At Interactive Brokers, we've always been dedicated to our professional investors. So now, hosting this podcast has not been your only role here at Interactive Brokers. You are also the senior manager of SEO and content. So what does that really involve?
Yeah, sure. So SEO is something that is very near and dear to most electronic brokers' hearts because that's core. We allow you to do many different things in finance electronically. So the way that people are entering business these days, it's not necessarily they see your billboard and they're on Main Street and they come in, they knock on their door and they say, hey, let me get one of those. So in modern day Main Street, if you will, in the yellow books of its time, is search engines. So what I work on is optimizing our websites and our content and some of our elements on our websites to be optimized so those search engines are able to add our information to a larger index and that we can be found for people searching. And that also goes deeper past that into, let's say, local listings, mobile search, voice search, AI search engines, things of that nature. So altogether, if you're searching for it, voice, thumbs, or large language model, that is done by yours truly and our team here for digital analytics and UI UX.
There is a lot going on here with that. Okay, so looking back, right, over the past couple of years, are there any surprising elements from the Sense of Security podcast? Did anything make you change your mind about things, especially regarding finance?
Initially, you start out, you're just trying to understand what's the flow of conversation, what's the best way to get the most information when it's a 20-minute interview, things of that nature. And once I got that down, I was able to really absorb so much more than just our briefing or kind of reviewing the summation of what we did on the interview. And I think some of the things that were very interesting to me, I always found the behavioral finance side very interesting. So we had done a podcast with Morningstar's behavioral scientist, Danielle Labotka, and she went through boomers, Gen X, millennials, and Gen Z about all of the different environments that they were in financially, how it has shaped their spending habits and the world that they leave for the generation next. That was very interesting. Looking at the cost of the American dream was very interesting. We recently did a podcast on the U.S. national debt, explaining the idea of the toddler who ate too much candy. It's delicious. You want a lot of it, and then you get a tummy ache. And initially, not everybody understands the underlying idea of that huge number. So there are so many different things. It's hard for me to pinpoint. I am very interested in, as somebody with a marketing background, very interested in some of those with a psych area, but also thinking about things like leveraged and inverse ETFs or items like the understanding how an IPO goes from an idea to getting underwritten to actually getting a price. How do we even get there? Those types of things are so important to understand as you start to move through your financial journey, because your portfolio is always going to change with your financial goals and your time horizon. So if you're going to start to incorporate those, or the previous items I mentioned, if they go into your research about how you're going to have to pivot within your portfolio, all of that was very interesting to me. And I think both the younger generation and anybody who was looking to expose themselves to new areas of finance found that very informative. Also, with the large network that our teams work in within IBKR, we had some really great guests who are top of their field and really brought some great research and really crucial points to what makes or breaks research or understanding of these concepts that a lot of people make common mistakes in. And I think that's the real value with Sense of Security is we didn't only just touch on what we are looking to explain, but we also said, hey, listen, these are the common misconceptions here. Don't just think everything is better on this side of the fence.
Absolutely. There's a big wheelhouse here, right? It's good that we can leverage different contributors and also find some new ones too. So, Cassidy, as we're coming to the close of this podcast, definitely want to say thank you again and again for your professionalism, your sense of humor, just all those wonderful things that you've given this podcast. And then to top it off, your SEO knowledge, so we know how to get it out there and so that people can see it and find it, more importantly. So are there any other parting words you'd like to share with us before you go off to your new adventure?
Yeah, of course. So first and foremost, thank you so much to everyone who's listened along the way and all of the guests that have joined us for what seems to be at least over 100 episodes by the time this goes out, maybe over 110. It's been a awesome experience for myself, so much learning in all senses of the word. It's been really great. And I am so thankful and lucky to be able to have gotten all of this exposure through my time at IB and the great connections that I've made here.
I think with that said, Cassidy, we wish you great success with your new position. And as always, listeners can learn more about our array of financial topics for free at interactivebrokers.com/campus. And just follow us on your favorite podcast network and feel free to leave us a rating and review. Thank you so much.
The analysis in this material is provided for information only and is not and should not be construed as an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to buy any security. To the extent that this material discusses general market activity, industry, or sector trends, or other broad-based economic or political conditions, it should not be construed as research or investment advice. To the extent that it includes references to specific securities, commodities, currencies, or other instruments, those references do not constitute a recommendation by IBKR to buy, sell, or hold such investments. This material does not and is not intended to take into account the particular financial conditions, investment objectives, or requirements of individual customers. Before acting on this material, you should consider whether it is suitable for your particular circumstances and, as necessary, seek professional advice.